meeting to order here. It's now 6:30. Still on time. First item is modifications or changes to the agenda. Do we have any modifications or changes? Anyone? No one? If not, we'll move on. Next is public comment. We do have somebody here from the public. However, Greta will be covered under her own agenda here on item numbers 4. Next item would be review approval of minutes of December the 12th, 2007. Motion to accept?
I'll second that.
Okay. Are there any errors or omissions? None? If not, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Motion accomplished. Next item would be better communication, better connections. Greta application, Greta Brunswick, NRC.
Yes. Hi.
How are you?
Okay, so since the last time I came to speak with you, we've developed the application a little bit further. I provided a work plan that includes a budget and schedule to, that get sent out to everyone?
Yeah.
Okay.
Copies of that.
So you all should have copies of that work plan, just as an FYI. I can give you a brief summary of sort of really the public engagement piece, which is I think what the experience of the community is going to be. So the project is planning to be hopefully announced at a new Green Up Day event for the community that EBA and Rise Vermont want to work together to try to make happen in May in connection with Bike Awareness Month as well. So we're not going to have, so the grant is announced on March 2nd, but then we need to do an RFP process and get a consultant on board, and that process can take between getting a contract with the state and then getting the RFP out, doing the full review, conducting interviews, getting them on board, getting the contract, the consultant set up. That can take a little bit. So my goal would be to have the consultant selected by that Green Up Day event, but that consultant wouldn't be on board to do the event. So ideally they would be able to come and sort of get a feel for the community, and we could announce that the project was funded and that it's going to be started. And then it just seems that there's several community members excited about having an official sort of Green Up Day around cleaning up the park and some of the rail trail sections that go through the village. So there's that piece of it. And then in September, there'll be, so it's a master plan looking to define a vision for the core village center area that's going to look at potential streetscape improvements, potential wayfinding, and how to better integrate trails and other recreation resources to the downtown. And then ideas on how to promote the village around those ideas and vision. And so there's, to create that vision, we're looking at a visioning week in the middle of September with a variety of events that people can choose to go to at their leisure. And so some of them might be sort of fun, like a family bike ride, or I don't know. And then some of them are going to be more of design workshops led by the consultant, looking at particular ideas or streetscape elements or wayfinding ideas. And then also, what does the community, in terms of promoting the community around recreation, what does that look like? And what are the, strengths that the community sees the vision, wanting to promote? And so the consultant will work to plan that vision week in coordination with a project steering committee. And then the idea is to have it either culminate or begin or end with Harvest Fest, so September 15th. And then EBA is looking to have a block party follow the Harvest Fest as well, so a first annual block party. So there's a lot of exciting community engagement events as part of this project. But so the Vision Week is something that will happen in September. We've also started conversations with the school on how to involve students in some of those events. So the next phase of the project will be for the consultant to actually come up with some alternative vision scenarios, and that might be branding ideas for the community around recreation. It might be ways to specific wayfinding signs or ways to integrate recreation trails into the town. It might be ways to make the streetscape a little bit more pedestrian friendly or other types of traffic calming recommendations. And so the second phase in the winter, in sort of like the January to March time frame of, actually it's crazy to say 2019, we're looking at having opportunities to sort of try out some of these ideas. And so that might be using one of the empty storefronts to just have the consultant have plans out for the community to stop in at their leisure to take a look at the plans. And it might also be trying to get a pop-up bike rental store for a weekend to see what that looks like, if that was something that's just like an idea. But what does that look like? Could we make that happen? And then also we were looking at potentially working with Local Motion to, if there were recommendations on pedestrian friendly and modifications to the streetscape, could we try those out in a temporary way? And Local Motion's worked with communities on doing that before, and so we would look at potentially doing that. But this all depends on what ideas are developed during, or what the vision is that's created during Vision Week, and then what the consultant helps the community come up with in terms of alternative considerations. But the idea is to be able to try some of those out in the winter, or at least have plans available for the community to review. And then the consultant will put together a final vision and plan that will consist of illustrative concepts of whatever these design of the vision for your community, whether it be wayfinding opportunities, whether it be branding ideas, or whether it be streetscape improvements. And that, so you'll have a final deliverable that the consultant will prepare, and then an implementation program as part of that, identifying steps to that need to be taken on in order to make that vision happen. And so what body is going to be responsible for that, what type of funding is going to be needed, how is the community going to be going about getting that funding, what are some ideas relating to that, and then also the idea, it was suggested by the state ACCD to incorporate into the work plan that the consultant would then actually come back for at least one meeting with whatever organization is working on implementation, to sort of check in and see and sort of give them a little bit of hand-holding on making things happen, because a lot of times it can be pretty daunting getting going. So some TA on implementation, I'm planning on building that into the work plan as well. So that's a lot. I tried to be brief. It's a big project. Any questions, thoughts, comments, suggestions?
What's the acronym? NRPC.
Northwest Regional Planning Commission.
Thank you.
That's where I work, in St. Albans.
Yeah.
That was an easy question. Have anything more to I don't know. It's a really exciting project. I mean, I really love seeing the amount of community support and momentum for this. I think that's really going to make the project. It's pretty special, I think. So I'm really excited to be working on it, and I have really high hopes. So tonight, that's the work plan. Feel free to, if you have thoughts about it, feel free to email me. John, you can get contact information from John if you go home and you're like, oh, this would be a great idea to incorporate. Let me know. It's still the application is due January 31st, so I'm still working on finalizing it. And so tonight I have a resolution for you to sign that will be included with the application submission. And I have, and then John actually has it. And then I believe there was a letter of support.
Yeah, so there were a few things you were looking for some action on by the board. One is we've got a resolution for you to sign as part of the grant application. Michael Jarvis, the chair of the Town of Enosburg Planning Commission, has also signed that. As they're required, the Planning Commission is required to sign the resolution as well. And then just to make sure we got our T's crossed and our I's dotted, it wouldn't hurt to have the board as well give me authorization to sign a letter of support, which will also accompany the grant application. And then finally, we'd be looking for you to authorize me to also sign the grant itself, I think.
Yeah,
That's
there was
the
another
third item we
signature
were looking
required,
for
yeah.
in that. So those three things, if you guys, and I can read the resolution to you if you would like.
Can it be done as one?
Sure, you can do it any way you want to.
No, I mean, we have to.
In one motion.
One motion can cover it all.
Can cover
Yeah,
it.
you can do
Basically,
it
that's what it boils down to.
any way you like. So do you want me to read?
Yeah, read
that?
off
Okay.
sure.
It's
Save
a
us.
little bit long, but, so it says, whereas the municipality of the Village of Enosburg Falls is applying for funding as provided for in the fiscal year 2018 to 2020 budget and may receive an award of funds under said provisions, and whereas the Agency of Transportation and the Department of Housing and Community Development may offer a grant agreement to this municipality for said funding, and whereas the municipality is maintaining its efforts to provide local funds for planning purposes, or that the municipality has voted at an annual or special meeting to provide local funds for planning purposes, now therefore be it resolved that the legislative body of this municipality enters into and agrees to the requirements and obligations of this grant program, including a commitment to provide a cash match of 10% of the project cost, that the Municipal Planning Commission recommends applying for said grant, and Michael Jarvis has signed it. And then the third part of it would be the legislative body signing this. And then there's a subsection 3A, which probably this we should talk about. It's asking for the designation of a local project manager. And Greta, I'm not sure.
That would be me.
Okay. So we had talked about Greta being the project manager for this grant, so we would just insert Greta's name and title in here, and then you would just sign it at the bottom.
So that's the proclamation. Now, in addition to that is your two other requirements. Is that right?
Yeah, so then the other motions would just be just to authorize me to sign the letter of support as part of the grant, and then to sign the application itself.
I'll make the motion.
Do we have a second? Everyone understand the motion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, nay. Motion is carried.
You're the boss.
Right there, John. I just want to make sure that we
Somebody's got to be the boss.
Yeah, so you print your
yeah,
name.
print our name and then sign here. Yeah?
I'm guiding the process.
Well, good.
I don't define the process. You guys are going to create, the community is going to create.
What's that?
The community is the boss, the community is.
Oh. We have a lot of bosses.
I'll help make things happen. Great, so I guess that's what we need. Everything we have. And so I'll coordinate with you on getting everything submitted. Now we just need to cross our fingers that we're funded. It's a competitive application. 3 to 4 projects are funded statewide. But I think we're putting together a really strong application. We've been in communication with the state grant partners. I'm actually going to be sending them a draft to review. So at the end of this week. So yeah.
We're sure you'll do a good job.
Have Have a nice evening.
Well, thank you for coming, Greta.
Yeah.
I'll get this forwarded to you with the other
Oh, I need
things
to
as well.
leave. Is Angela's desk accessible, or can I leave it with you?
Angela Wright,
Yeah.
her office is at the town clerk's office.
Oh, right.
Do you know where that is?
I don't.
Okay, the town clerk.
I mean, I do know where it is, sorry, but I'm not going there tonight. It's closed.
Okay, but you know where it is.
Can I leave something with you for her to pick up from you, just because you're both
Sure,
in
we'll get
Enosburg?
it to her.
Is that okay? I can have her come pick it up here.
Yeah, we'll get it to her one way or another.
Okay.
I have to be in Waterbury tomorrow, so as long as it's not a quick
Or with
deadline.
Joanne.
Does that, she
It
needs it
just,
tomorrow?
she was gonna coordinate getting Mike Jarvis to sign this one too.
Okay, that one has his signature.
Right, and I
But
want
he
one from
needed
the
this one
town.
too?
I want
Okay.
one from the town, village, just to be clean.
Okay.
Is that pen handwritten?
All
We
right,
ended up-
well, can I leave that with you then, Joanne, to give Angela a call tomorrow? I think.
And I'll email her.
So she is working tomorrow. She works Tuesdays, Wednesday, and Thursdays.
Okay.
So she should be
Yeah.
in. Just give her a call and let her know that's down here.
Okay, sounds good.
Thank you so much.
Sure.
All right, good night.
Good night,
Have a
Angela.
good night, Greta.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Mr. Gary, how you doing? Good.
Next item is 2018 budget. Our first attempt to come up with a balanced budget. Wastewater department and electric department, A and B. Jonathan, you have something to say with regards to the budget?
Yeah, so I assume everyone got their budget packets here. These were left for you guys last week. Some of what is contained in this budget packet is accurate and correct. Some of it is not. And Walter and Guy are aware of this. I spent some time talking with them yesterday afternoon. There is a problem that tracks through 3 of the departments, 3 of the 4 in here. And so I want to be forthcoming with you about that straight off before our conversation tonight. I don't think that these are insurmountable issues, but they do change the bottom line in all the enterprise funds, which is water, wastewater, and electric. General fund was not affected by this, but all of the enterprise funds were. So the bottom line figures that are showing in the packet that was distributed to you guys last week is not correct, unfortunately. Yesterday afternoon, Joanne informed me that had to do with the principal payment line items and the savings line items in all 3 of those accounts had a software issue and did not carry through to the 2018 proposed budgets, and so that threw the bottom line off in all 3 of the enterprise funds. So tonight we're going to discuss the wastewater and electric department. I'm sure you're curious to know then, and I assume you've got the new drafts for the board to look at.
You said not to
They-
make the changes.
Nope, please print out, you need 4 copies of that.
Okay,
They need
sorry.
they need to see what they're looking at.
Okay.
Well, I guess we'll take a lull because there's not much point in talking any further until you've got these to look at. When you get a chance before these guys leave, you should give them the water as well so that they can see that. Water, we're not going to talk about till next week, but at least you've got the wastewater and electric in front of you right now, which is what we'll be talking about tonight under the 2018 preliminary budget. So wastewater is what we're first looking at, and so if you did take the time to review the packet that was distributed to you last week, you would have seen that we were showing approximately $13,000 of revenues over expenditures in the wastewater department in this preliminary draft. So look pretty good. The draft that was just handed to you paints a different picture, again, because of the changes in the principal payments line item and the savings line item. So as you look through this newest draft, those changes then with the included increased costs under those two line items are showing a deficit of $45,648. Not the greatest news. I'm sure this is going to be a little bit of a shock for you. Rest assured, it was a bit of a shock for a number of us. And we have spent the last 24 hours or so going through these three budgets to come up with some ideas and options for you to consider as to how we can close the deficit that's showing in this latest draft. So we've got about $45,000 to close there. And so that you don't immediately go into panic mode, as I said, we have been spending time thinking about this thing. Everybody, all of you staff members that are in the room here, and we've got some ideas how we can make this a lot better than what it's showing in this second draft. So let me go over then some of the things that staff has been talking about, and there's a couple different options in here. I prefer one option more than another, but ultimately it'll be you guys' call. So you may want to, if you got a pen with you, you want to be probably making some notes on this new draft so that you can keep track of what I'm saying on here. So in order to overcome this $45,000 deficit we're showing in here, the first thing we'd like to propose is, after another review and set of discussions on the revenues line item, we believe that in actuality we were too conservative in our estimates of the revenues, and we are all quite comfortable in adding another $20,000 into the revenue side of the picture for the 2018 budget. We believe that we're going to have more revenues coming in. I think we're just underestimating, being too conservative on the wastewater rate in particular that Franklin Foods will be paying to the community. And both Brian and Dave feel very comfortable in increasing that by the revenue side of this by another $20,000. Okay. The next change we would like to recommend is under the sludge management line item. We believe we'll still be pretty safe. We don't think that this is a hocus pocus number. We think we had, maybe put a little bit too much beef in that line item. Again, trying to be conservative in our approach to the sludge management and making sure we had enough money in case something bad happened. But we believe we will be still fine if we reduce that line item by $5,000. Okay? So that's 25,000 right there. Okay? So let's see.
We're down to 13.
20. Right. So then under the electricity line item, we believe we can reduce that by $2,000, bring that down to $70,000 from $72,000.
Just electricity, you say?
Yes. Okay. And then I'm going to make another proposal. Gary, Brian, and Dave haven't heard this, but this was an idea that I think was a good catch, and I can't take credit for it. It was actually something that our senior bookkeeper, Lori Stanley, pointed out to me, and that is under the accrued time line item. I believe that we can reduce that line item by $20,000. The reason being, if you look at the budget from 2016 to 2017, you'll see that that line item almost doubled. And the reason was because Rodney Allen retired this past year in 2017, and we had to pay out all of the accrued time that was owed to Rodney after 39 plus years of employment here. He had a lot of accrued time on the books, and we had to pay that accrued time out to him at the time of his retirement in September of 2017. That liability is no longer there. That was a one-time thing. That liability is gone now.
How much was that approved time?
20,000. I would propose we reduce that accrued time by $20,000, which would put it more in line with what we had previously budgeted before, Rodney's retirement had come up. So those four things would actually close that deficit. We would actually be slightly
Over.
right to the good. We'd be about $1,500 to the good.
That's in the water treatment.
That's wastewater.
Wastewater.
We're talking about wastewater, yeah. So I believe if we do those four things, we will have closed the gap that you're seeing in that draft that was just handed to you. And we would actually be slightly to the good again. Not 13,000, but we would be about $1,500 to the good if we did those four things. And I think all of those are reasonable. I think that we would still have a very fine budget to show the public in the wastewater department if we did those four things.
How much did we reduce electric by, Jonathan?
2,000?
Okay.
Or if the board doesn't like that plan, and for some reason, there was a part of this they didn't like, the revenues or reducing the accrued time or something, say we did just a few of these things and ended up with around a $18,000 or $20,000 deficit still to close, we could do one of two other things to try and close that $18,000 to $20,000 gap, and that would be either take that money out of available funds that we have in the wastewater department, and we have enough funds in available funds that I would feel very comfortable taking $18,000 to $20,000 out of our available funds and using it against the cost for the 2018 budget. If for some reason you didn't like the 4 steps that I just described to you, or we could consider a rate increase, which would probably be the least desirable, I'm imagining, at least to the board. And we did, just today, we did just a very rough calculation based on if we did a few of these things and ended up with, around a $20,000 gap in the budget to close, how much of a rate increase would it take to close that $20,000 gap? And we'd be looking at approximately a 10.4% increase in wastewater rate to close that gap. I'm imagining that's probably the least desirable option that the board would want to consider, but that is another possibility. But my recommendation would be to take the 4 steps that I initially went over concerning revenues, sludge management, electric, and the accrued time line item, and make those changes, and we would then have a balanced budget again. So, Gary or Brian or Dave, if you guys have any further comments you'd like to add, or anything else you want to discuss with the board at this time, this is your opportunity.
I think the use of that accrued time savings is a great option.
Yeah, it was a big catch.
I remember going back, now that you mentioned that with Rodney retiring, we bumped that savings account up significantly. And
The day is
the day is come and gone, thankfully. In the sense that I don't expect to be leaving anytime soon, hopefully. And it gives us time to monitor whether we're going to run in the negative year after year after year before we jump into a rate increase or anything like that. But I would just remind you that a couple years ago we did a rate increase. We only anticipated doing half of it that year, so we knew we were at a tipping point. But I think we've been holding steady, and hopefully this will get us over the top.
Do any of the board members have any questions for Gary or Brian or Dave?
No, I personally don't myself. It's been well thought through, and probably it is the answer. Those 4 items to at least show, particularly if we recall just recently, just this year alone, record amount of people that are not paying their taxes. They just don't have it, So the more we can keep the locals happy, the better off we're going to be, really, And I'm totally opposed to any increases whenever it occurs if we can avoid it,
Well, I think you folks have studied this and you come up with what can be done.
Puts you in a comfortable position, it's really,
Yeah. It's always good if we can.
Can it start off with a positive, and then if it dwindles down, then you've got a slight negative, that's all.
Yeah. Yeah. So we don't have a lot of cushion in this set of proposals, but it does at least put us in the black.
Yeah.
It shows that we have a slight revenue expenditures for the year.
I think we're exempt at $1,352
Yep.
surplus.
I don't know how the rest.
Anybody, any thoughts, or do you have any thoughts on it? Do you understand what it's, how
I
it occurred?
understand, and like Guy was saying, you guys have done your homework.
You know the business, you know what we can do, we can't do.
Okay.
It is I'm fine with that myself.
So can we safely assume then we're going with this approach then, as discussed, the 4 items?
Yeah.
Okay.
Well,
No, I just want to make sure that everybody's happy with that, that's all.
Okay.
Yeah.
So we'll make those changes then, and we'll have those ready for you guys to review. And I get the sense then that you're okay with that budget then?
Yes.
Making those changes. Okay, very good.
Was there anything else on that budget that you wanted to discuss, or you felt it was pretty close? We do have a little bit of fudge factor right now to play with.
No, and a couple items that we did knock down, I wish we had a little more working history to maybe make more of a motion with, but the electric, with our mixers, we're supposed to, through Efficiency Vermont, they figured about $4,700 to $4,800 a year. But we don't have any working history, so I hate to jump right into that.
Yeah.
And with the sludge, we knocked it down significantly last year, but there was a slight increase on Plattsburgh's tipping fees. So again, I think we put a little bit extra in there to cover that, but we probably didn't spend quite as much as we thought we were going to, so I think we had a little flexibility there. Again, with the rate increase and another year under our belt, maybe we can peg that down a little tighter next year.
Okay, very good.
Well, we thank you.
Thank you.
So shall we go into electric department
Yeah,
then?
let's jump in.
Okay. Thank you guys for coming down. Have a good night.
You too.
Okay, so I won't repeat the same opening speech then on electric regarding the principal payments line item and savings line item as I expressed that issue, that problem track through all 3 of the enterprise funds, the electric being one of them as well. So if you look at your the new draft on the electric department, you'll see again the significantly changed the bottom line from what you were seeing and what I had written about in the blue booklet that was submitted to you last week. And in this draft, rather than a surplus, we are now also looking at a deficit in the electric department of approximately $37,216. So, but again, you know, over the course of the last 24 hours, staff has been discussing this issue as well, trying to come up with options for the board to consider. And I do think we have, you know, some ideas on this worth considering. So again, if you want to break out your pencils or pens and just take some notes, and certainly open to any feedback you guys have about these thoughts. But the first thing that staff would like to recommend to correct this is we, after discussions about all of the line items in the electric department and what options seemed reasonable, and not looking at, you know, things that were going to put the department in jeopardy somehow, but things that seemed like they could be reasonable compromises. We think that based on past history, we could reduce the maintenance of lines line item in the electric department by $20,000. We think we could do that without jeopardizing other factors, other priorities that the department would like to carry out for 2018. The next recommendation is we would recommend reducing the tree trimming budget by $10,000. If you look at previous years, you'll notice we had actually put in an extra $10,000 into the tree trimming line item for 2018, thinking that, looking at the draft that was first given to you, that, you know, it looked like we had a little more money that was going to be available, and that was something that Dave Westcomb, our new head lineman for the electric department, wanted to try and get a little more tree trimming done in our service territory if it looked like we were going to have some extra funds available. Now seeing that that is not really the case, taking out $10,000 from that would actually just put it back to what, you know, it would have been funded in that last year's budget.
But what the last half of the year we'll be producing again, we'll be making power. Is that fact?
Yeah, that's totally different subject.
Okay.
But yes, your statement is true, Guy. We
I didn't mean to try to
believe,
change things.
no, we believe we will be generating electricity again beginning in the spring. Should be in May of this year. We should get the Kendall plant back online, and if all goes well, we'll get plant number 1 back online 1st of September. So, but yes, to sort of answer your question, our power supply budgets, though, do take into account the fact that we are going to be down with our generation for a very significant part of 2018 because of the renovation project that we're currently working on. So we did have, you know, some increased costs there as a result of that.
Yeah, the past 6 months we've been down.
Yeah. So with those two suggestions, then we're down to about $7,216.
What was tree trimming?
10,000
Okay.
reduction.
Yeah.
We would be down to approximately a $7,216 deficit that we would be showing. And my suggestion on that would just be to take it out of available funds in the electric department. We certainly could absorb that in the 2018 budget. That's for that department, that's a pretty small amount of money. Now, understand that really leaves us no cushion at all.
Oh, yeah.
And as you guys know, I mean, you have one small spike in power supply costs in 1 month, you know, you could all of a sudden be $20,000 just in that 1 month over your power supply costs. So, you know, that goes with the understanding then that it would, you know, you'd just have to make up the difference of whatever came out of that. You know, not saying we want to see that happen, but it's possible things like that happen sometimes in the power supply markets. And those are things that are out of our control. So it would just, you know, be with the understanding then that we would have to make up that difference in available funds in the electric department, but we have enough in there. I don't have concern over that. The other option, I'll just throw out there without going into a lot of detail, is you guys may note that the special rate for Franklin Foods is also included in this budget. We put it in at the full value. So if that were to come out, we're $83,000 to the good without doing anything. Just mentioning that. So
Eddie's from Edmond.
yeah. So, you know, there's some things to think about there, and, you know, you may want to come back to the electric department after some consideration and give staff some further instruction about, you know, what you'd like to see done in that department. With those options out there, there's probably some things you want to think about a little bit. Gary, do you have anything else that?
No, I know Dave's big concern was the line out on Boston Post because of all the sugar makers now, that there's a line out in East Bakersfield they'd like to get upgraded. So hopefully our $60,000 will take care of that.
But that's in this draft still.
Yeah.
So. Do you guys have any questions of staff at this time? It's okay if you don't.
No, I think you folks know what can be done or should be done and how it can be handled.
Well, I think either of those two sets of options, so I kind of laid out two different options for you with the electric, you know, that I think will bridge that funding gap that you see there. I think both are acceptable, but we'll need to take some further consideration. And you may want to take a little time to think about that. I think we can probably go to the next one then if there's no further questions.
Is there any questions? Everybody want to take home their packet and have another look at the electrical?
What's that again?
We'll be talking it over again anyways, the electrical.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, we had several more meetings, budget meetings scheduled.
Yeah.
This is just to give you an idea of, you know, what the drafts look like.
Can we somehow get these 3-hole punched or
Yep.
back in?
Yeah, Joanne, why don't you print out, just print out new copies for the board and include the water department
Okay.
version in that as well, and can she drop them in your boxes?
Yeah, sure.
Is that okay?
Yeah.
Okay,
So if you can get that done,
tomorrow. Yep.
is that they're done for you tomorrow?
That's fine,
Roll
yeah.
punch. Yep.
Okay, great.
Well, if that's the case, then we'll move on to our diesel number 1 building, Echo Center project.
Yeah, so if you flip in your packets, is there someone out there, Gary?
Yeah.
There is one person that, it's actually for this item, I don't know if it's
Yes,
Jim Gilmat.
He's just in time.
yeah, done. Just in time.
Hi Jim, how are you?
Early, right?
Yeah,
You got
and
it.
see, that was good timing, we just got to the agenda item that you're here
Must be
for.
an early night then, right?
Well, we'll see. We got a few more things still to get through.
To time everything else like this, you're doing well.
That's right.
So, Jim Gilmet is here to answer any questions that you guys might have about this agenda item. And in your packets, you'll find an emailed summary from Louis Hodgetts, who is our engineer for this Eco Park Diesel number 1 project. And I think I had mentioned to the board we were trying to get administrative details together, get the contract worked out, and the other administrative necessities that go along with that with Gilmat Handyman Services. Ran into a couple snags, resolved some, but there's one that is still hanging out there that we need to discuss tonight with you guys. So if you haven't read the summary from Louis in here, I'll briefly go over it with you guys. So what's happened is Gilmet Handyman Services has discovered that they are unable to get a bond for the full amount of the contract price to complete the project. Unfortunately, it's a larger project than Gilmet Handyman Services has done in their history, and Jim has been unable to find a bonding service out there that is willing to bond him for the full amount of the cost of this project because of that. Now, he has done some bonding with some other smaller companies, but they have a limit up to which they are willing to bond him for, and it's for significantly less than what the cost of this project is. They'll only bond him for up to $100,000. So it's created a problem, obviously, because we would like the project to be bonded in order to make sure that not only the village of Enosburg Falls, but also the federal government, which is paying for half of the cost of this project. Remember, we've got a grant from Northern Borders to cover 50% of the project costs on this. So that's something we have to, be concerned about as well. So Louis, Jim, and I have sort of been talking about this for a week or 10 days, and Jim actually came up with a creative possibility for this, I do have to say, but given its nature, I felt like it wasn't something I could say yes or no to. I feel like the board really needs to be the one to say whether you're comfortable in going with this potential solution that Gilmet Handyman Services has come up with and is asking the Board of Trustees to consider. So that is that we would break the contract, what we thought was going to be one contract, into two contracts and do this in two phases. And each phase obviously would have to be less than $100,000. And in that way, Gilmet Handyman Services could then go back to his bonding service that is willing to bond him, for up to that amount, but not more, and get a bond for each of the two phases separately. So there's pluses and minuses to this solution, and I want to be honest and forthright with you guys about that, because there is some risk for the village in this still. And that is, the risk is, nobody ever wants to think this is going to happen, but sometimes things don't go great during construction projects, and if for some reason, either Handyman Services walked off the job for some reason, said they weren't going to continue it anymore, or we were unhappy with the work that Gilmet Services had provided and told them, we don't want you to do any more on this, don't come back for phase two, it does leave exposure to us. It leaves us on the line on terms of how we're going to get the second phase of this done, and we would have to rebid the project again. So there is some exposure there. Now, on the plus side, if you decided to move forward with this solution, that means there's a good chance that we may be able to get this done, get it done now. And the only alternative for us, if we walk away from this and tell Jim that that you're just not comfortable with the risk that the village has, is to put the project back out to bid for a third time. Recall, this was the second time we had put this project out for bid. So we'd be putting it out to bid for a third time, and there's no guarantee that even if we did put this out for a third time, we would be in any better situation, once we got those bids back. So that's a risk too. There's a risk in doing that too. Remember, the first time we put this project out for bid, we didn't get any bids. We got no bids. So it's, that's something you have to consider too in this. Just for further consideration, I had mentioned the Northern Borders grant that we have for this that's paying 50% of the cost. I did have some correspondence with their representatives to see if they were going to have a problem if we decided to move forward with Gilmet's plan and cut this into 2 phases, each phase being bonded separately. And they've responded that they would allow us to do this if the Board of Trustees made that decision.
So how would you break it up? What's this consist of? You got the building?
Basically, the first phase would be the block work of the building, the stuff you gotta do first.
Is there any earthwork?
No, there wouldn't be any earthwork, because obviously, actually there isn't any earthwork in this part of the project anyway, so. But, the block work would be done, the windows would be done, the doors would be done, the inside prep would be started. That would be the first phase of the project. And then the other stuff, originally I hadn't planned on doing until springtime anyways, because obviously I can't paint the outside of the building until spring. And the electrical outfit couldn't be done till then. The masons are going to tent the building to do it in the winter time so they can heat it. So I can at least start on that, the first phase of the project. And I know, and the other thing would be the asbestos removal, that would be done first. That's the first thing that's going to be done anyway, so that would be what's in the first phase. Then we do this.
So both phases, planned, both phases would still get done. So the entire scope of work in that base bid would still get done, and if we're able to, we could still add some other things in there. But this is more an administrative tactic, if that's an okay way to phrase it, in order to get around the issues that Gilmet Handyman Services is having in getting the bond in place.
My insurance company only bond up to a $100,000 job.
Yeah.
So by splitting it in 2 pieces, it puts this particular phase of the project below $100,000, so I can get the bond. And then when we go to the second part, I'll just get another bond for the second part of it, which is still below $100,000.
Right.
So then I can have a bond on both parts.
So in theory, this could work. I mean, the risk, though, as I said, is that, okay, what if something goes wrong? We've only got a contract for 1 phase of this, and either we don't like the work Gilmet does, or he doesn't want to do the job anymore and walks away from it. We're still got that exposure on getting the second part of the project done, and that's the risk. But as I said, there's also a risk going and putting this out to bid for a third time as well, and there's definitely no guarantee that we'll be in any better situation if we do put this project out
Do you
to bid.
do sub work for other larger contractors?
Do I do some work? No,
Oh,
I
you
don't.
don't?
I do all my own work. Yeah.
Well, that ain't what I meant.
No.
Do you work for other contractors?
No.
Does he get subcontractors?
I use subcontractors, if that's what you want to say. Like the mason, I'll sub out the masonry to the mason that I use, and then the electrical and the roof will be another phase. I have another sub for that part of the stuff. But
Well, the other thing is here, say you do a contract for 85 and it only covers 50,000 of the work. You know what I mean? I don't know where the half point is here.
well, that's what Louis split it in the
Well, it's
contract.
split at 84, isn't it? 2 84s?
Yeah, Louis split the work.
Engineers split it up.
They split it up in what we figured was fair split on the amount of work on each part. So that I didn't do 25% up front and then 75% in the rear, you know what I'm saying, on the second contract. It's split so that there's even dollar amount worth of work in each
So the
contract.
engineers are working on this too?
He's the one that wrote up the.
Yeah, he's been involved. He was the one that initially that had the conversations with Jim
Yeah.
about this idea. And then Louis kind of relayed that request, this idea that Jim had about breaking this into phases to me. And that's, as I said, in the emailed summary from Louis in your packets here, he pretty much lines out the whole thing and how he would propose to split the costs on the phases. Yeah, so it says right in here, Guy, phase 1 would include the masonry replacement and repointing, the asbestos removal, window replacement, door repair and replacement, and some interior prep work. Phase 2 would include all remaining tasks, including the electrical system upgrades and solar panels, roof repair and flashing, interior and exterior lighting, interior and exterior painting, and interior cleaning. And then if we had some funds left over, which is a possibility, given the total cost of the bid that Mr. Gilmat had put in, we could maybe look at some of the add-on items that we had in the bid specs as well.
So this is a grant, and the engineers approved this splitting the bid up.
Well, only you can approve.
You can approve it.
Well, no, I guess,
Louis, our engineer, came up with how he would propose, if you guys approve doing this, how, as the engineer, he would, propose splitting this project into 2 phases.
There's what you say, money-wise, both things are equally attached contract.
Louis, is that something like the guy named Tony?
Yes, we don't.
So if you go with the,
Actually, I think it's French. He pronounces it Louis. His last name is Hodges.
Yeah, Tony is Italian.
Yeah.
See, they came from Italy to this country.
so if it's 84,000, you split it,
I took the total number of the first bid I gave, we
Yeah.
approved, split it in half.
but then you will be able to get the bonds?
Yes.
They told you could?
2,100.
So I make the motion that we go with that.
Yep.
He's got Louis working on it.
Okay. We have a motion on
What
the
do you
floor.
think?
Do we have a seconder?
Who made the motion?
Leonard?
Leonard just made a motion.
Yep.
We have a seconder?
Yeah?
Okay. Everybody understand the motion
yeah.
that's been presented? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, nay. Motion is approved.
Okay.
2 splits.
Very much.
Get hold of
Play
Louis.
with figures, that's all it is.
Yeah.
It's a play of
Okay,
figures.
so we'll get working on this.
Yep.
We'll let Louis know, and we'll start working on getting the contracts
Get the contract
reviewed and
signed.
signed, and you can get the bonding and.
Yep. Okay.
You know the story about Tony, don't you?
No.
These Italians, when they came to this country, they couldn't speak English. They all came to New York. So they wrote to New York on their lapel. That's why there's so many guys named Tonys. Anyways,
Wow, guy! You know you're on camera here, right, guy?
I know. Yeah.
Yeah, some entertainment for the public.
Right.
Okay.
That's the comedy relief there.
Okay. Thank you, everybody. Appreciate
Thank
it.
you. Yeah.
Okay.
Have a good night.
See me out there soon then. Yeah. Okay. Just let me know when you read through that contract and so we can get to me and I can get the paperwork rolling. So we're
Okay,
just waiting on that, the bond company. So
all right, sounds good.
have a good night, everybody.
Have a good
Thank
night.
you.
Good night.
Yeah.
Next item is manager's report.
Okay. All right, well, happy New Year, everybody.
Yeah.
Nice to see your faces again. This is our first meeting of 2018. Hope everybody had nice holidays. First thing, I'll just give you guys a an update on the hydro renovation project. There is some action that I'm going to ask you to take, though, as part of this. If you flip in the back of the manager's report, you'll see 4 change orders, which I've received from our engineering firm, HL Turner Group, specifically Paul Beck, who is the project manager from Turner Group on our hydro facility renovations. And I'll explain to you what each of these change orders are. Let me say, though, up front, that none of these change orders are adding any additional cost to the project at all. Okay, so it's not changing the contract amount in any way with Kingsbury. So and I think I attached a summary here. Yeah, I did. Attached a summary email from Paul Beck in this material as well in the back. So change order number 1 is in the amount of $7,912.55. This is being recommended by HL Turner Group, and it's for the discovery of lead paint on parts of the interior of the turbine, and the cost to send these parts back to the shop and remediate the lead paint from these parts prior to NORCAN inspecting and working on them. Change order number 2, he has listed as Belzona repairs. And let's see, this has to do, it was determined that in-place machining of the turbine components was not necessary, thus NORCAN determined that the contingency fund set aside was not needed. However, after further inspection of the top and bottom seal surfaces for the wicket gates, they concluded that they are in need of some additional repair. NORCAN feels the areas should be sandblasted of the paint and cleaned, and then metal surfaces repaired with Belzona metal repair in such a manner to bring both seal surfaces to sufficient finish. So the term Belzona refers to the type of surface finishing for metal repairs to do with the turbine. And that is in the amount of $22,927.32. So change order number 3 then is to create, in other words, manufacture and then install new wicket gates to enhance the improvement and efficiency of the operation of the turbines. It's been discovered that our existing wicket gates are badly damaged, and it is not advisable from our engineer that we attempt to repair the existing wicket gates. He believes they're so severely damaged it's not worth the investment to try and repair them as they are. He believes it's more cost effective and efficient to just purchase new wicket gates. So change order number 3 is for new wicket gates at a cost of $73,055.23. So you may then be asking, maybe saying to yourself, well, wait a minute, John, you said there was going to be no additional cost to the contract that we have Kingsbury, but it appears change orders 1, 2, and 3 are adding some pretty significant costs. And that brings us to change order number 4. And change order number 4 recognizes the returning of the contingency that Norcan was holding as a subcontractor on the turbine work to Kingsbury Company for $224,177.55. So Norcan is going to be releasing this amount in their contingency funds that they were holding as part of their estimated cost to do the turbine work on behalf of Kingsbury and Kingsbury's contract. You might recall this had come up earlier when we saw how much contingency Norcan was holding, and they're part of the scope of work for this project, and we had asked Norcan if there was any wiggle room that they might be willing to release some of those contingency funds so that we might be able to consider other scopes of work within the project. And at the time, they said, no, we don't feel comfortable in that. Now they're further into the project, a lot further, and understand a little better, how much their cost is really going to be to complete their work on the turbine for Kingsbury. And so they're at a point now where they feel they're able to return this part of the contingency money back to the project again. So change order number 4 then is in recognition of these contingency funds being released from Norcan back into the contract again. They're saying, okay, we understand now, we're not going to use this much of the contingency that we had budgeted to do our turbine work. So we have another $224,177.55 that is now available to do other work in the project. And that's what change orders 1, 2, and 3 are doing. So when you add up change orders 1, 2, and 3 and apply them to what's being returned back into the project for use by Norcan, you may say to yourself, well, but there's still some money left in there. And you're right. So we would have left still in that contingency about $120,282.45 to be exact. I talked with Paul Beck about that and whether he has some other ideas for the remainder of that $120,000 and some change. And he said it's possible, but he wants to wait until we're a little further into the project, wait another maybe 2 or 3 months, and then
Not
he'd
be too excited yet.
Right, and he would like to see how the project continues over the next 2 to 3 months. And if it looks like everything is still going well, we're still on track, budget-wise, then he may come back with another set of recommendations for another change order to do some more work with that $120,000. But right now, as our engineer, he was recommending we just hold on to the rest of that contingency for at least another 2 to 3 months and see how the project continues and progresses.
Is there any chance they might have it done sooner, or?
Sooner than the contract date? I have no reason to believe that right now. Nobody has communicated that they will have it done earlier than the contract date. We'll just have to see. I think it's a little too early to say.
Yeah.
They have until August 30th to complete that project, and it's only January, so they still have a lot of time left to get that done. But if that comes to my attention, if it looks like they may get that project done a little early, I will certainly let the board know.
Yeah.
So we are looking for then approval for change orders number 1, 2, 3, and 4 in the hydro renovation project from the Board of Trustees.
So what we need is we have a motion. Guys putting a motion forward.
Second.
Second, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, nay. Motion is carried.
Okay, very good.
What was this motion for? I thought,
It was to approve all the change orders that I just went over with you guys, change orders numbers 1, 2, 3, and 4.
yeah, I thought this was being done automatically.
No,
No? Oh,
it
okay.
required, this is being recommended
Okay.
to the board by our engineer, the project manager on this, who's Paul Beck from HL Turner Group. But only you can approve the change orders, only the board can actually approve them. He is asking for your approval on change orders.
We don't have direct deposit.
And your staff, I am supportive of approving the change orders.
Okay.
Next thing, wanted to let you guys know that on January 3rd, so just last week, the White House approved a major disaster declaration for the Vermont windstorm event, which took place in many parts of Vermont during October 29th and October 30th of 2017. Enosburg Falls Electric Department, you may recall, received damages as a result of that storm to our electric infrastructure. In this case, it was estimated at about $45,000. We're going to go back and revisit those estimates and try to refine them some more, but the work we had done to date on that had our damages at about $45,000 for the electric department. So because of this declaration that was made last week, we would then be eligible for FEMA funds in assisting with the cost of the damages that were done to our electric infrastructure. Unless the board instructs otherwise, staff is planning to apply to FEMA to receive our share of funding for the damage that was done during that storm to us. And the deadline to get our application in for assistance is February 1st. So just wanted to make you guys aware of that. You know, I'm assuming you don't have a problem with staff applying for FEMA assistance on that storm. And Joanne and Gary and Dave Westcom are already working on getting the application materials together for that. As I said, it's got fairly tight deadline now. We've got about 3 weeks now to get that application into FEMA. Next, wanted to make the board aware that David White, the Executive Director of Northeast Public Power Association, has resigned his position with NEPA to be effective, March 16th of this year. David has been serving in this capacity for just over 2 years as Executive Director of NEPA. NEPA's Board of Directors will begin a search for a new director to fill that vacancy immediately. But I wanted you to know, as we are members of NEPA, and I am also one of the Board of Directors on NEPA representing Vermont on that board, that David White has resigned and we're going to be looking for a new executive director. We'll start that search quickly. Also wanted to just take a moment to acknowledge, I'm sure everybody here is aware, but I just wanted to take a moment to acknowledge the passing of Val Bonk in our community. As many people know, Val served as a member of the Village of Enosburg Falls Board of Trustees for many years. Was also the chair of the board for the majority of the time. He was a member of the board And Val also worked as a volunteer on many other boards and committees in the Enosburg community and in Franklin County. So just wanted to take a moment to acknowledge that. I'm certain Val will be missed by many, many people in this community.
He was a real good community person.
Yeah. And lastly, I mentioned at the beginning of the meeting, I'd come back to this under manager's report. Wanted to give you guys some information concerning Bill Spears. And then also a reminder of who is eligible, or not eligible isn't the right word, but whose term is running out in 2018.
Billy Spears
and Leonard. So Leonard, if you had forgotten, your term will be expiring in 2018, so if you want to continue on the board, you need to run this year. Bill Spears' term was the other term that will be expiring this year in 2018. Bill came into the office this afternoon and informed me that he is, he's leaving for Florida early tomorrow morning, and so that's the reason he's not at the meeting tonight. And he's going to be in Florida until April, so for about 3 months. And when I reminded him that his term was expiring this year and so he needed to run again, he informed me he's not going to run again. So Bill is not going to be running again as a board member. He said if somebody did a write-in for him, he would probably serve if there was a write-in, but he was not going to actually put his name on the ballot to run for the position. So just wanted to make you guys aware of that, and that was something he informed me of this afternoon. And that's it for manager's report.
Okay. We have anything under other business?
So I'm gonna get so many signatures to put my name on the ballot?
Yeah, and then you've got to get those to the village clerk, who's Andy Bolio.
Yeah, doesn't he normally leave them here at the office?
Generally, you fill it out and
You fill
leave
them
it
out,
here, and people,
then you,
they come in and sign it.
and once you have it completed, then you sign the consent form that your name can be published as such on a ballot, and then you're off and running. All you gotta do is stand in front of the church doors Sunday morning and fill a ballot up. We'll get you a couple more sheets of paper.
I would, Leonard, I would say just talk with Andy Bolio and he'll walk you through all the steps that you need to do to get your petition in.
I'm sorry.
I would just say talk with Andy Bolio and he will walk you through all the steps you need to do to get your petition in so that you can get your name on the ballot.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
And he'll let you know the deadline, because it's all depending on statute. He has to match up the dates for
Actually,
receiving
he's up
petitions
for
with
election.
statute.
Well, his job is the annual.
Yeah, he has to do it every year, so, because he is the clerk and also the treasurer, which are two separate positions technically. So, but those are annual positions, so Andy has to run every year for those two positions. So, you only have to do it every 3 years, so but yeah, I'd say just talk with Andy and he'll walk you through all the steps and give you the deadlines for when you need to have it in.
I think it's 18, 19, 20. I think it's 21 signatures all total. When you get the paperwork, bring it over.
Can I get a photostatic copy of 3 years ago?
Yeah. So if there's nothing else under other business, I'll entertain a motion to go into executive session. Do I have that motion?
Make the motion to go into executive session.
Okay, do I have a seconder? Good. Okay, pen's down. Put your pen down, Leonard.